This is day one, the first of 3 days, and this is the first morning session. And I just want to say welcome. And if you were part of the original recording, then you saw that we had some technical challenges, and if it could go wrong, it did. And I just want to let you know that we've got everything resolved, and that we're going to have a much simpler presentation, but I believe you're going to like it because we actually found some ways that we can bring in some videos and do a little interaction so you're not forced to sit right in front of the computer. And the main thing that I'm really wanting to create for you is an experience that you can step into the seminar and really just shut out your outside world for a little while. I know that you're watching this from home and it's hard to carve out time. There are a lot of demands, but we're recording this into some smaller chunks so that you could take some time, go into a lesson, make sure that you get to have a little teaching, have an experience, and be able to do a little transformational personal work, and that this is something that's going to be supporting you as you go along. And by the way, my name is Catherine Perry, and welcome to Commanding Wealth. And before we go into the seminar, I know that you had your reasons for wanting to participate. I've got my reasons for wanting to share this with you, and I want to talk to you about that. But before we do, I want to just ask you a few questions here. And if you have a notebook, I definitely recommend keeping a notebook handy. And this is your journal, and then if there's a quote or a question, you might write down the time that you had the question. We're going to be answering questions usually before and after the seminar, and then we're going to be throwing open the floor to Q&A. But I want to just invite you to be thinking about this, because we're going to come back to these questions at the end of the seminar. And the first question is, why do you want to take this course? And what beliefs about money and your behavior with money do you want to change? What changes have you wanted to make, but up until now you haven't been able to? And why do you think you haven't been able to clear that belief or program until now? And once you make the changes you seek, what will you be able to have, be, or do that you can't have, be, or do right now in your current situation? And finally, what greater good could your being financially free serve? Okay, so I want to just invite you to take a few minutes to think about those. And I want to walk you around this session a little bit, because this kind of has some really neat features. We have, of course, the PowerPoint presentation. You see me talking on the audio. We have some YouTube videos that we think is going to make kind of enjoy your time a little better, let you know about coming in and out, and it'll help to time the breaks. And then we even have a whiteboard that I can be making some notes on for you. And so this way we're not going to be having to switch gears, change the equipment around, do those type of demonstrations, and I'm actually going to film things separately if I feel like I need to go into a deeper explanation with you than what time will allow, or if I feel like I need to do some type of demonstration. Okay? So when we're on the live chat, we actually have a way of pulling it up, asking questions, which we've figured out the mysteries of that now, and to where we can get your feedback. And then you would even have a way of, if you don't feel like us seeing your scrubbies or in your comfy clothes and you just want to have some privacy, you can actually put an avatar up so that people can't see you. And it would just show the face, or let me use an avatar and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. And there's the avatar. So you have some ways that you can definitely keep your privacy. All right. Heck, I'm starting to have a bad hair day. Maybe I'll switch over to that, or if I decide I need to have a little sip of water or something. Okay. So let's go ahead and go into this. Now, I just want to, because there's a big promise with this Commanding Well seminar. I mean, this is pretty bold because we said it's going to change your life and your fortune forever. That as you discover that there is an actual brain state of the rich, and and I want to stop right there. I mean, and the reason I'm stuttering is because the rich people's brains are really different. They have a different wiring. Um, we have a wonderful friend, Juan Acosta, who was really interested in how brains worked and people who had extraordinary states and people who were able to, millionaires and athletes. He really wanted to see how their brains worked. And so he was doing studies at University of Washington several years ago, and he actually met Asara and brought her into the lab and hooked her up because he wanted to know how people with extraordinary abilities who are, very intuitive, visionary, people who work with Reiki, that type of thing. He wanted to see what happens to their brain. He was noticing that there was a lot of theta gamma waves, and we're going to talk about that. And then he said that with millionaires have a different mind. Now they have a different mindset, but they actually have a different way that their brain works. They actually have a very strong ability to go into like a high theta, alpha theta state to where they're going up into here we go high, but your brainwave's actually lowering. And so they're able to operate there, but then they have a very strong left brain, and the beta and the theta seem to be in a different conversation. And so he tracked actually two waves happening at the same time so that they could get the big vision, they could tap into their intuition, but then they were able to take action. And when he started sharing with Asara some of his studies, this really put her on a lifetime journey to really say, how do we change our brains? More than changing our habits, can we really change our brains? Can we change our mind, which is different than our brain? Because our brain is a processor, but our mind is really how all the parts of us are communicating. And then we have different aspects of our mind. Like we have the parts that are hidden, we have the parts that are our ego that we want to express out into the world. And then we have all the cells of our body that have its own intelligence. And how do we get all those parts working together for one good? And she really wanted to know what it is that is stopping people from doing, from really achieving what they want. It's more than circumstances or having to overcome difficulties in life, because everyone has things to overcome. There's some people that they just never recover after a big loss, and then there's some people that they can deal with a lot of loss. And what is the difference? What is that resiliency that some have? How can two children that are raised up, that maybe one has a very traumatic childhood, takes that experience and transforms their life into a life of success, happiness, and fulfillment, and the other child gets sucked into the trauma and the drama and that lifestyle and perpetuates the loss? What is that? Well, a big part of that is a decision. There's this key decision point that happens in our lives at different points. But those decisions are really neither right nor wrong. They're the best decision that we think are available to us. No one really intentionally means to make a bad decision. Did you ever sit up and go, of all my choices today, what's the worst thing that I can do? Well, you're always trying to make your best decision. But here's the thing, you're basing your decisions on decisions you made in the past and your parameters. And it has to connect back to the emotions. And so it's so much more than what's happening in your mind, and it's so much more than your emotions and your feeling state. And we're going to talk about some of those things and how can you come to a new decision point? How can you really change your life? So you're going to discover about this rich brain state. You're going to discover about this state of contentment and success that you can actually turn on and activate during the course. And as you enter that state of mind, you're going to change your thinking, your DNA, your emotions, and the ability to create the life of your dream in moments. Now that sounds pretty heady. Now, and I'm going to just go ahead and say here that, I've been working with the One Command several years. I've had a lot of amazing experiences. I've worked with a lot of students who have had incredible transformation and change, but nobody has had a perfect life yet. Nobody. Life goes on. There's losses and disappointments and things that happen that are a little outside of our realm or control sometimes. But that inner state of peace, satisfaction, joy, confidence, a sense of competency, capability, that stays with them no matter what they face. Every one of them. And when life knocks them down, they have a greater ability to get back up, and they have more resources and tools available. And the setbacks are much shorter and much less devastating. Okay, so Asara has talked about this, I have too. And so we just want you to know that this is not a magic pill. You are the magic pill. You are the mystery and the magic and the greatness. And this course is about introducing you to that greatness that you already are, that master being that you were born to be. You came into the world with everything that you need, and your environment has actually turned on and off and shaped some of your um, thoughts and habits and behaviors. There's been some training there, but you can retrain yourself into the ways of success. Now, there are some ways that you are just hooked up and it's not going to change, and it has been up until now, it's been stopping you. But we actually work with people, and this thing that they think is a big block turns out it's one of their greatest assets. And we actually show people the power of that lack, what they perceive to be a lack or a limitation or a block. We turn that stumbling block into a building block. And the biggest thing that I have to say is going to happen, you're going to learn how to really release those fears about what you don't think is possible in exchange for enjoyable, prosperous living naturally and easily. I'm on the phone all the time with people, and I started my business with no money, no list, a vague idea that I wanted to help people. And I actually lived in a really bad part of town, working a full-time job, but I just got the idea that I could offer some demonstration sessions when I had learned a new healing technique. And then I just started trying things. And it just didn't occur to me not to try things. It never occurred to me to stop. And I've been on the phone with people so many times when they go, well, I really want to start a business. I really want to help people. I really want to get into coaching or counseling, be a practitioner. I want to start a business, but I don't have money. I don't know anything about marketing. And the thing is, it's not really about what you don't know. We really want to get you over to that part of you that has the dream, the desire, and as you connect into that dream and that desire, all of the information for how to market and how to connect and be in the right place at the right time and the right structure, all of that information is actually contained inside of the dream. Then, as you start moving forward, helpers, both seen and unseen, start coming available to you. We're going to talk about this because right now is maybe you're looking around in your life. There's a way that you're seeing and experiencing things, and you don't even realize that you have fears because you've lived with them so long. Fear is not necessarily like, you're shaking under your covers and you're going, oh, I hope this doesn't happen. But there's a lot of ways it shows up. And we're going to start uncovering some of those, and we're going to start really helping you meet yourself in the moment. And it's not even just this moment. We're going to teach you how to do some meet yourself in the past and actually connect in with that future self so that you're pulled forward to your fulfillment. And in this, you're going to discover, I'm just going to read off the screen here because it's actually a little close for me, but you're going to discover your greater intelligence and the one command that gets you everything you want. And now, I want to say, we're trained to say, I don't always get what I want, but always get what I need. But the truth is that in all of our buying and the choices we make, we don't usually choose what we need. We usually choose what we want. But we have this idea that we're not allowed to have what we want, or that there's something stopping us from having, being, or doing what we want, some force outside of us. And the truth is that is inside of you. So we're going to teach you how to really get the things that you want. You're going to experience changes in your DNA and the cells in your body as you literally rewire the neural net programs of your brain and your emotional thinking. You may actually feel some tingling up in your brain. You may feel some tingling up in this part. That is perfectly normal, because there's an energy center there called a crown chakra. This is your connection to source mind. But I have literally felt my brain kind of do this little number, or things open up, because the minute you learn something new or a new resource becomes available to you, your brain immediately changes and adapts it, and new neural net processors and transmitters and receptors suddenly are formed to make those new connections. And we're going to be collapsing those old negative connections that keep you in that loop of fear, lack, separation, doubt, that holding back behind that invisible wire that you don't even know why you can't move past it. Okay? And then if you're willing to set aside your notions of what you think you know and are open to taking an incredible new adventure, then this information is going to provide you with some techniques that will forever change your concepts as well as your financial good. Now, I have to confess, I'm an Aquarian, and my mantra is I know. And that is probably my biggest downfall, is because I'll go, well, I know what the problem is. I know that I should be doing this and this and this, and if I talk to someone, they're probably going to tell me that and that and that. So what is the point? Well, the truth is, I can't really know what my program is or my block is. I can only know the effect. And I'm going to be showing you, based on your languaging and how you're talking about your experience, how to start uncover the clues to your programs that are stopping you, and you don't even realize it, all around you in your everyday thinking and the way you talk about things too, and the way you are perceiving things, there are clues to your success that you're literally blind to right now. You are deleting it, you're distorting it, you've generalized pain, and we're going to talk a little bit about what those words mean, but it's really going to have to do with how you're creating your reality. Okay? Now, I just wanted to kind of quickly go over the general outline of the course, and this is a 3-day course, and this is based on the live course. Now, when we're in a live course, we usually get to have some music, we're up moving around, and we have a lot of interaction with the audience members. And I'm going to do my best to have some interaction, but it is a little different atmosphere on the internet and with the webinar, but I still want to make sure that we have a time for connection. I have set up the basic hours for this to be from 9 to 6, but because I have not taught this in this format, we may actually end early. And so there'll be some homework, or there'll be some other videos and materials for you to view that's part of the day, but you can take your time to view those at your leisure. Okay, so today, the very first day, is about the foundation of the one command. What is the science of how your mind creates reality, the structure of the one command, and we're going to learn how to start clearing beliefs and meeting our inner programs with the one command. Tomorrow, we're going to go deeper into actually meeting those money programs, where those came from, how can we not just uncover it, just like I said, the things that are blocking us, but what are the little clues to our key to creating wealth? Now, I want to pause on that for just a second, because there's something that you are doing naturally right now. Not that's just something that's for fun, but there's a way that you naturally are that that brings value and help to others. There's some skills and talents and abilities that you have that are worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to other people. But you are blind to the potential of your wealth right now. And so we're going to talk to you about uncovering not only your negative money programs, but your positive ones. Then we're going to introduce you to the amazing um, science behind the ratio of the golden mean and the Fibonacci numbers, and how the codes of wealth are literally encoded into all of nature. And one of the clues to that is beauty. And the more beauty you get into life, you actually are creating an environment of wealth around you, and money loves that environment. It actually opens your brain up to this greater ability to create more money. So if you're living in a house with clutter and disorder, or if your surroundings aren't pleasing to you, one of the best things you can do to start bringing money into your life is to get your space clear and bring in some beauty. And then we're going to teach you how to transform your past with the one command. On day 3, this is the day we call this where we kind of put you back together, and you're going to be learning about the power of the new beginning and that uncomfortable gap between the thing that you really want to create and its manifestation. And what happens on that bridge between those two experiences, and what do we do during that time lapse? Then you're going to learn about, I think I may have had this twice, pardon me, not the ratio, the golden mean's not there, but you're going to learn how to do more manifesting techniques. I really want to try and get some demonstration people here, because we do learn from each other. So if you're interested in doing some demonstrations or being a volunteer, and maybe if I even recorded you for the session, that would be fabulous. So if you're interested in that, you can send a message to me at Catherine@catherineperry.net. And then finally, we're going to be learning about the Disney strategy, which is an incredible technique for kind of amping up that creative ability that you have. Now, for me, to be a creative person is a really easy thing. I really love it. And in fact, I think if I weren't doing this, my perfect job would be to be part of a creative team and just let me dream and spit out those ideas, because there's just no limit to it. My challenge was, and for a lot of people, is really dealing with some of the realities of the things I want to create. How can I get those structured in a way that I feel like they're manageable? How can I really recognize what are the parts for me to deal with directly that maybe I need to go get some support with? Maybe there's some learning. And then how do I deal with the inner critic? And how can I put that critic to work for me so that I can come up with a good working plan? And this is an incredible technique, so that by the time you're done with this, you're going to know how to take an idea, blow it up, get it down to something that's working, and then look for any holes or flaws in it, and then come back into your creative self and get your particular line of genius. Okay, so let me go ahead and let's just take a little stretch. Okay. All right, that's a lot of talking. So I'm going to switch over to the full schedule right now. To the full PowerPoint, if you don't mind. And I'm wondering, how many people got this message when you were growing up? Get to work. You aren't being paid to believe in the power of your dreams. Now, this is actually a humorous poster. It's something that I love, but when I saw it, there was actually this shock of recognition, because of all the jobs that I ever had that were just soul-sucking and mind-numbing, and it seemed to be a pretty clear message that I got from the world. And it was a pretty clear message that I personally got kind of growing up, even though my parents were good people, hardworking people. Um, to take the time to dream and play what if really was not um, smiled upon. It was not seen as a good thing. Now, what was on my side is that my mother was naturally intuitive, and so was my dad. And so they had this acceptance about an unseen world. They had this acceptance about one's intuition and being able to be in a little different relationship with people than the world that they could see, touch, and feel. And they were very spiritual people, and so they actually had this idea about how we could be in relationship with the greater world. And when I started meeting Asara and the One Command, and really she started talking about the greater intelligence, I knew what she was talking about, because there would be times, and I've never met a person that this hasn't happened to. There'd be times that I was speaking, or there'd be an idea that I'd want, but there seemed to be some little extra oomph. Um, it wasn't quite channeling because it was all me, but it was wiser than me. And I was noticing I was kind of in an observer mood. And this would often happen when I was with two or three people and we were talking about some ideas, or we would start talking about spiritual things. And this kind of expanded state of being would happen, and suddenly I would know that I knew that I knew, and there was no separation between me and knowing. Now, maybe you've had a glimpse of that. Maybe you were talking to someone else, or maybe you've had that flash of insight. And that's what we're talking about. That part of you that knows something that's even beyond your ordinary training or understanding, that you don't know how you would get an idea that is not anything you ever thought of before. Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about, how can you have a thought that you never had before? And that almost has to come from some part of you kind of outside of you, because our thoughts are actually part of a cycle that's going on. We say that thoughts are questions you ask yourself, and your beliefs are the answers you give yourself. But those thoughts are actually little, like almost like little energy bubbles kind of radiating up out of your body. And if you could just kind of imagine that, let's say that you were a kid and that you had a lot of homework to do. You were, there was just a lot of schoolwork. There was a lot of stuff going on. There were a lot of demands, and you weren't quite starting to pass in school. Maybe, I don't know who I'm talking to about that. This wasn't my experience, um, but there was the criticism. It's like, well, all you got to do, you got to buckle down. You got to buckle down. You got to work harder. You got to focus. And then you start noticing that when you start feeling pressure and feeling overloaded, your first thought is to say, hey, I got to buckle down. I got to buckle down. I got to get it done. Well, was that you telling yourself to buckle down the first time, or was that a parent telling you? Right. So that was probably your parent, and you internalized their voice. So sometimes we've got like these frozen kind of voices and instructions and thoughts and emotions that we're actually kind of carrying around in us. If we feel criticized, if we were punished, if we were shut down in some way, and that's unresolved, this actually causes parts of us to kind of get freeze up because it's too painful to deal with at the time. And as our little kid self, we shut down and lock it down. Then the next day is kind of a new day because we're kids, but that piece never got resolved. So this is what we're talking about. This is frozen part of you. And this starts to unblock it. I think I've kind of moved around on the slides a little bit. But when we're talking to you about that greater intelligence, this is the part of you that's not your dad's voice or your mom's voice. This isn't you saying they don't like me or they're mad at me. This isn't you saying my family doesn't understand me. There's something, and if you've noticed when this comes in, it's inclusive, it's loving, it's supportive, there's no judgment. And that is the amazing part of that. And what would it be like to live your day-to-day life from that state of being inclusive, wise, loving, no judgment? And this is the part of you that's wanting to express. And this part of you, it's almost like if you were a little spark of light and what we might call creator or the greater intelligence was the original spark of light. Light seeks light. This is just a metaphor. But there's a connection between the light that you are and that even greater intelligence that's outside of you. And all of these parts want to be, all of these bits of light that make you up are always communicating. And even those parts that are outside of you. And there are positive messages and negative messages and empowering messages and limiting messages. And based on your emotions, that's going to determine which messages you tune into. Then we're also going to learn about a little bit about how to position ourselves and move ourselves into that observer mode. And all of this has to do with our brain waves. So much of what we're creating is actually beyond our own senses and our own awareness. And there's a famous quote here, Max Planck, the father of quantum mechanics. He's the one who came up with the famous now the particle experiment. But there are realities apart from our sense of perception. And so there's more than what we can see, feel, hear, and know. Now, in modern times, we could say, we absolutely know that that's true because let's say even the microscopes that exist today are very different from microscopes that existed 50 years ago or maybe even 100 years ago. Very different in how much detail and how much more information that they can get. And the same is true with just telescopes. But 100 years ago, was there an was there an EMG machine that we could go into and it could actually, through using magnetic fields, read and scan our body? Or think of just the different electric meters and the blood pressure meters and all the different ways. There's so much. Think of electricity, which was always there, but we learned how to harvest it and learned how to use it and generate it on purpose. And we have ways of measuring it that didn't used to exist. Radio waves. And there was always something transmitting because crystals were always transmitting sounds and carrying those sounds back and forth. So there are realities apart from our sense of perception. Where we create from is from the unseen and the unknown. That's where we manifest. It's not really in our known world. Now, we will take action. We will create a space. We will set up we'll build a platform, and we will start, doing things that will generate a particular outcome. Now, that is different, but the idea of that came from an unknown place. There was an interesting talk that I saw where someone was talking about where ideas really come from. And a lot of your ideas about the things that you want to create are already in you. They're kind of half ideas. Then there'll be something in your outer reality that is kind of a match that bumps up. It's the other half of the idea, and it kind of bumps up. And if it hits at the wrong time, you go, oh, I wish I had known that. Oh, I'm not in a position to take advantage of that now. But that makes sense. That would be such a good idea. Right? You ever have that one? But then you go, wow, eureka, this is the answer I was looking for. Well, how does that happen? We can't really quite see that. And how were you able to track that and notice that? Well, that has to do a lot with your reticular activating system. We are mostly visual in the way that we're experiencing our reality. Of course, we have five senses, and there are those who are without sight, and their brain is set up a little differently. But what sets our brain apart is the way that we process information visually. And with the reticular activating system, it operates on particular parameters. It looks for what is similar. Now, there are some people that they're set up to look for everything that is different. And if you'll notice, they're always contrasting and separating. And so, and that gets reflected in their speech sometimes. They seem like they're negative or contrary, but they're always on the search. Well, in their reality, they must look for the contrast. That is their program. That's how their particular bend of light goes. But for the most part, we are always looking for that which is the inner match to our inner reality. So let's say that, well, we've seen this with our friends. I'm sure this hadn't happened to us, but you've seen where you've had the girlfriend or the gal pal that she always seems to pick the wrong guy over and over. What's wrong with her picker? You would think that she'd want to go get the best guy possible that treats her with respect and wants to romance her and dine her and show her a good time, and somebody that she can just give her best to. What is it in her that would draw her to someone that's not good to her? Well, he is a match for her inner reality of not being worthy of love. And everything that he does supports that belief. We're going to reject everything that does not match our inner belief system. But we can't always know what it is. We can only know the clues and the results of our beliefs and our programs. But this creating from the unknown, it's the idea, and Asar and I talked a lot about this. I said, does this idea come from outside of you, or is it something that's born inside of you? And the answer is yes. But what causes the activation is when someone is witnessed, that often the difference that happens with the child, and I hope I'm making sense here, that there seems to be a third element of something in our environment, but it's usually relational. There's some person that says, you can do this, that this pain that you're experiencing is not what's normal, that you're greater than this. There's some messenger along the way. And sometimes there's just someone that was even in passing. Sometimes there's a significant person, but we all have that person. But who they're speaking to is not you that's the weak and the broken. That person that inspired you, the reason they inspired you is because they spoke to your greatness that's inside of you. They saw the truth of your potential and your goodness. And that half idea that you had that, no, this doesn't have to be this way, that I know I'm good, I know I can have something good in my life. When they speak to that, that's that other half of that idea, and that creates a spark. And there's this moment that you accept it. Right now, I just want you to pause for a second and think about how many positive statements have you rejected? How many words of encouragement? How many great ideas? When people want to be helpful or supportive or say, hey, you can do this. Hey, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're handsome. You can do this. And you go, no, yeah, but I know, but it's still like you can't accept it. How many opportunities have you walked by? How many have you turned down because of this inner sense of not deserving or being worthy or able, or that it's not yet or not you or not now? And this isn't making you wrong, because I want to remind you that everything you've done up until now has been done to the very best of your ability. You know, you were trained into denying your own good. Maybe first your parents denied you. Maybe there was really tough circumstances that, hey, it just wasn't an option, no matter what you needed. Now, if you got to hear my story, you know, my parents owned a grocery store. They bought the grocery store because they wanted to create something for our family. They wanted to be able to add to the wealth. They wanted to get out of the 9 to 5 job, which turned, you know, 9 to 5 would have been a vacation, because we went from working 9 to 5 jobs, and they went into first working after they got off of work, working part-time in the business to build equity. But then the store hours were 7 in the morning till 11 at night, and usually we were there. Even as a kid, I was there all the time, and everything was about that store. And suddenly, this business that was supposed to support our family, wanted to be in our family, had to give everything up to support this business. And so the program became, I can't. Can you come spend the night at our house? Can you join the Girl Scouts? Can you go to the bonfire? Can you go to the dance? No, no, no. Usually no. Then, as I shared in my personal story, being a bedwetter and the things that often girls get to do. You know, I was uncomfortable because I didn't feel clean, and I was always kind of pulled back. I was a great big sensitive crybaby kid, just uncomfortable in her skin. But then I had this thing that was wrong with me, and then if, you know, I just couldn't go spend the night at their house, or, you know, just do all, just more than that. But there just was too many I can't, I'm not comfortable. And that just, all of that just set me up for just a lifetime of being isolated and feeling separate. I felt damaged. But there was still something inside of me that told me that I could be something, because I kept dreaming about something greater. I wanted to perform. I wanted to be up and out with people. I loved, you know, seeing the things about rich people. I loved business. I loved all those things. That came up from inside of me. And we're going to tap into that unknown part of you. And we're going to talk a little more about that later. What you have in your life right now is a direct reflection of what you brought into matter by your own thinking. Now, even if things have happened outside of what seemed to happen outside of your control, there's still a vibrational match. There's something about the particular circumstances, the time and place. And, you know, I love what Rich said. He's one of our participants, and I'm going to see if I can pull up his email, because it was just so great what he said, because we were having all of the glitches. And he said, regarding the technical difficulties, it's amusing to see counter intentions manifesting. Very powerful subconscious counter intentions blocking the seminar, and I think you handled it nicely. Well, thank you, because we were having some difficulties there. Well, up until now, so I didn't know that I wanted that to happen. I didn't know that there was some part of me that wasn't quite ready. I thought I was ready. I'd been practicing for days. I'd been preparing for days. But I realized that there was a different message that I really wanted to give you. I realized I was actually trying to put a different kind of seminar that wasn't quite the match for what you were wanting. And that part of the promise of the seminar is that we tune into the intelligence of the group. We're connecting in to this group consciousness, and then we're bringing in the teaching in a way that is a match for you. And Asara has done that, and people have taken a lot of our seminars, and we have the same format. We get everybody to the same place, but the information in each seminar is always just a little different. And we'll probably never be one of those kind of teachers that, you know, we could just roll out our memorized text, because we're tuning into you, we're getting our internal feedback. So even if it's something that you don't like, it is a direct reflection of what you brought into matter by your own thinking. I just have to share a little story. A few years ago, Asar and I had Asar Lovejoy, who's the author of The One Command and the developer of this program. She and I wrote this program together, and we had actually come off of the road after being in, I think something like 6 weeks of teaching seminars. We were on this high. We just, were just ready to come home and relax. And Asara had hired someone to be a house sitter and take care of the dogs, and he took care of the property and everything. And she'd known him for a lot of years. And coming back home from being on the road, found out that he had totaled her car that she had just paid off. We'd had such a successful trip. She went ahead and paid off the full amount on the car and was really looking forward to not having any new car payments. He totaled the car because he was borrowing it, and there's these little windy country roads, and there was a bottle on the seat. When he made a turn, the bottle rolled off the seat into the floorboard, and he went to grab it, and when he grabbed it, he accidentally went off into a ditch. And I asked him, I wanted to be mad. I wanted to be really upset with him. It's like, why are you driving the car when you have your own car? And he said, well, no one told me I couldn't drive it. And oh, I was like, well, that's the wrong answer. But Asara, I was like, wow, I didn't know I was ready for a new car. I said, what? She said, I didn't know I was ready for a new car. She said, I've actually been kind of unhappy with this. I was going to make do, but I really didn't like the car. But I didn't know I was ready for that. And so it just so happened that some friends of ours were going out of town, and we really weren't quite ready to spend money yet because we were still in the stage where we had made the decision to do our business strictly on cash basis, and we were really working on getting the business out of debt and getting everything set up. And we had our budget, and a new car was not in the budget, and she just didn't want to spend the money then. So some friends actually had a car that they were going out of the country for 3 months, and they had asked if they could park it at the property. Asara got permission to use that car, and then when it came time for us to get a car, it was because I had been her roommate for a while, and I was getting ready to move out because I had given my car to my daughter, and we just were roommating and using the car. We just were kind of socked in. It was very rare that we used the car. That's just the way it was. So when I said, well, I've got to have my own car because I'm moving out now, I'm moving back to Texas, we said, well, we did the one command for we don't know how we have a new car. And I think it was 10 o'clock at night, and I thought, oh, I need to check into this website about a car. And it turned out they had a fabulous deal. By the end of the week, I had not one car, but two cars. I had the right car for me and the right car for Asara. That was much less than what we were looking for everywhere else. And it was just sitting there, and people said, how did you find out about it? And I said, my intuition just spoke back to me. And I took action on it. So the way that we are having our reality is processed through all of our senses, but then it's like a feedback mechanism. Okay, so I want to just kind of come back to something here. I'm going to do a little demonstration with you. Right now, there's a way that you're having an experience in the world that you're walking around, you're observing it. Then there's the story and the way that you're observing your past. There's your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas about the past. There's your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas about what's happening now. There's your thoughts, your feelings, your idea about what's happening in the future. If it is moving you forward with excitement and anticipation, then you are projecting from an experience in the past or something that's happened, some signs and signals you're getting in your ordinary reality now, which we're calling ordinary, what you can see with your eyes and hear with your ears, feel and touch. you're getting something in your environment that is kind of giving you the clue that, hey, you could take action. Then when you imagine it, you get a positive outcome, and then you start taking action. Isn't that cool? Very simple, right? When it's negative, you'll get the signal, hey, there's an opportunity here to do something, but I'm not sure if it's right. Your unconscious mind is doing the search back to the past and going, what do I know about it? And then if there's pain associated with it, then what it does, this thing that you want to create, if it looks even similar, let's see that it's like moving, changing jobs, going to a higher paying job. And you go, well, gosh, it sounds really good, but I don't know, I'm really afraid. I'm not sure I should do that. Well, what your mind is doing is going on a search about what do we know about going to higher paying or going to new opportunities. Then it's doing this search back to the past, and it's somehow connecting into the past unresolved pain, and then it projects that pain into the future. And this is really the only difference between the two. One is when we're looking at our memories, we are getting positive memories and associations from the past. We project them into the future and we move forward because it's a match. Okay? Yeah, I think we should have called this the one match, but we're going to learn what that one command is. Okay, so I want to really talk to you about, let you have a little demonstration about how this works, how our emotions and our mind creates reality. And what I want you to do is I'm going to hypnotize your two index fingers. I'm going to switch this back over to the screen for a second. Hello, I'm back. And let's see. This is my right, so this looks opposite for you, I believe. Okay, but what we're going to do is your right is going to be positive, 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 positive. And right now, through the power of the internet, I'm going to hypnotize your fingers. Hang on. All right, so we've got those, and I want you to go ahead and identify your right finger, identify your left finger, okay, and pull back away from your wherever it is you're sitting right now, because I want you to be able to have access to your knee to where you could just raise it kind of up and down. I can't quite get the monitor there, but let's just say it's coming up and down straight this way. All right? I want you to think about a time in the past that you felt stuck. Negative finger, left finger. Think of a time in the past you felt stuck. And I want you to take that left finger and press it down on your left knee. And I want you to think about everything that you have to think about, tell yourself or remember about being stuck. Okay? Go ahead and get stuck as you need to get stuck. This is probably, I feel tension like coming up out of my gut right now. Okay? They're probably pretty familiar. Now you can go ahead and raise your finger. Now with your left finger, your right finger, pardon me, I want you to think of a time that you felt free or that you were in the flow. Free flow. Okay, great. Now, just think of free and flow. Maybe you were swimming, maybe you were a kid playing in the water, but it was just easy. Think of the time you could feel yourself flowing, and then you get that pressed down on your right knee. And just whatever it is you have to think about, tell yourself or remember to go into that experience of flowing. Okay? Great. All right. So now, just close your eyes and back for a minute. Okay, bring your fingers back up. Isn't that nice? Now let's test the being stuck with your left finger pressing down on your knee. Get stuck. And up. Let's go back into flow. And this is called an anchor, a kinesthetic anchor. Okay, so now here's what I want you to do. I want you to press your right finger on your right knee. And now press your left finger on your left knee. Close your eyes. Now lift your left finger. Okay. Now, did you feel like a little movement, like a little brain? Yeah. So I'm going to explain that in a second. Now I want you to go back and press on your left knee. Think about that stuck feeling. Can you find that? Probably might not have as much steam or energy. Okay. Now go into this flow feeling. Wow. What happened there? Well, this is called a collapsing anchor. And in your brain, you cannot hold these two emotions at the same time. And the brain is going to choose the one that has the most resources, the one with flow. And what it does is it will immediately switch all of its energy over to there. It's kind of like a big power grid. Then what happens is it causes that other negative feeling to collapse. But I want you to think about that stuck feeling for a minute. That was probably a pretty familiar feeling. And that's the feeling that you are probably spending a lot of your energy trying to avoid. And so your state of being and all of your choices are not based on trying to move forward to the thing that brings you the most joy, happiness, and fulfillment. Most of us spend our time trying to avoid pain, lack, and suffering. Now, this has to do with us being small children and our survival, that being loved meant having our physical needs met, and that we would do anything possible in order to get love from our parents. Now, that's an oversimplified statement because there's some beliefs that have come in and some programming that was actually formed in utero, and there's programs that are carried down through the generations. There's some that are shaped by your environment. There's been injury. There's been trauma. Nutrition makes a difference. And all of our conditioning. But in spite of all of that had happened, that happens, that greater capacity, that greatness that you really are, is still there and cannot be denied. That light that you are. No matter what you've done in the past to try to hide it, there is nothing that can hide the greatness that is you. And what if it's just as true that all of these thoughts and these images and these emotions and all of this is cluttering up and hiding our truth and our greatness? Who would you be without your body? Who would you be without those nagging thoughts about everything that you're doing wrong? Who would you be without the worry of bills or the worry of loss or having to figure out every day how to get over the hump or how to make sure you have enough? Who would you be? And what would you do? What kind of thoughts would you think if you were free? We're going to be exploring more of that. Part of what's in the membership for you is a meditation that's called the Space All Around. I want to encourage you to take some time to listen to that. And yes, that is my little attempt at special effects, but it's an incredible experience of being able to go in and start experiencing yourself as an observer. Now, we have a break coming up right now, and I'm going to play a little YouTube video just for the sake of the conference here because this is a pre-recorded one. But just take a little break. What I want you to do is get a cup of coffee or drink some water, move around a little bit, and then we're going to come right back. And then while we are taking the break, I'm going to just play some Karen Drucker for you.
Do I desire? What will bring me to my highest good? What do I want? What do I desire? What will bring me to time.
all the time.
I can have it.
I can have it.
I deserve it.
I deserve it.
I claim it.
I claim it.
It is mine.
It is mine.
I can have it.
I can have it.
I deserve it.
I deserve it.
I am it.
I am it.
It is mine.
It is mine.
Peace
Peace
fills my heart.
fills my heart.
I surrender.
I surrender
Everything.
everything.
Health
Health
is my birthright.
is my birthright.
Passion
Passion
helps me sing.
helps me sing.
I can have it.
I can have it.
I deserve it.
I deserve it.
I claim it.
I claim it.
It is mine.
It is mine.
I can have it.
I can have it.
I deserve it.
I deserve it.
I am it.
I am
It's
it.
my time.
It's my time.
Break it on down.
Anything I want,
Anything.
anything I desire, anything that brings me to my highest good. Anything I want,
Anything.
anything I desire, anything that brings me to my highest good.
I release
I release
and let go.
and let go.
I accept
I accept
what is mine.
what is mine.
I can have
I can have
what I want.
what I want.
And let spirit
And let spirit
direct the flow.
direct the flow.
Life is good.
Life is good.
Life is fun.
Life is fun.
Life is great.
Life is great.
This song is done.
Okay, I am back on the air using my built-in speakers. Okay, was that fun? That was Karen Drucker. That's a money chant. And I wanted to go into a little bit about the brain waves and fields of consciousness and why it's so important with the one coming now. At the time of this recording, most of the people that are on the seminar have had a chance to work with me. Excuse me, I want to change my glasses so I can be on the computer. There we go. And I'm going to actually switch over to this mode too. There we go. In the one command, we actually are retraining your brain. And what we're doing is we're motor driving the brain and the mind to do what it naturally does. When people are able to achieve these extraordinary levels of consciousness, strength, abilities, awareness, there are particular steps that they all go through. And we have uncovered those ways to motor drive the brain into those steps and how to kind of turn on these different levels of consciousness. And we just want to share with you why the theta brainwave and what quantum thinking and theta all have in common. Our brainwaves reflect the many dimensions of who we are. Now, just think about in your ordinary life all the different roles that you play. I mean, you may be a parent, you may be a spouse, you're someone's child, you're an employee or a business owner, you're a service provider, you're a neighbor, you're a person in a community. And depending on the relationships is really another aspect of who you are. If you go to a checkout, if you go to the grocery store, there you may be a customer, but to the cashier you may be a regular. Hopefully you're that sweet regular that comes in all the time. Hopefully you're not that one that's causing her problems. But you're someone's favorite. You're some guy in traffic that cut him off. You're that sweet person that let him in. there's all these aspects of who you are. And I think you also can kind of tell that, and I want to kind of keep this first just in a relational piece, that there's some people that when you meet them, you just want to cooperate with them. You just want to help them. And somehow the very best part of who you are kind of just shows up. And you may actually even, it may be so unusual the way you're acting with that person that it kind of like jolts you a little bit, going, I wonder how I can be this way with this person and not like this all the time. Or maybe there's someone also who brings up that some of your worst qualities. And so they're in relationship with the worst part of themselves, and so they get into relationship with the worst part of you. And then you notice that you're acting and feeling a different way. Well, every cell that you have has its own intelligence. Your organs have intelligence, like the collection of cells that make your organs. There's your body that has its own intelligence. I mean, your body actually operates as a collective, and there's this kind of collective conversation that's happening all the time. Then there's the energy body. Then we might even go into your higher self. But then we could go into different expressions. There's, we talked about in employee and business and child. But then when there is let's say there's a wound or a trauma, then there's a part of you that's unresolved, that's broken, that's wounded. And that part of you is needing to get some help and support. And we have these things called memories. And so these memories start coming up, positive or negative, just the same. But we'll have these start coming up, and then we don't know how to deal with it, so we think we will push it down, or we circulate on it, trying to ask ourselves why. Or we tell the story over and over again about our wounding, not realizing that that story re-wounds us. So we have all of these pieces, and they're all kept they're all kind of expressed at different waves and vibrations, okay? And those different waves and vibrations are measured in hertz, and those are radio waves. And those are actually how they measure brain waves. Now let me look at this slide real quick. So what are brain waves? The brain waves are frequencies of electrical energy that the brain produces, and they originate from the cerebral cortex, but they include the activities in other parts of the brain that influence the cortex by the operation and care of our body and our intelligence and our emotional thinking. The electrical charge of the brain's activity is measured in hertz, and the higher the number of the hertz, which is the electrical impulses, the faster the operation of our brain. Now, our brain is also divided into two parts. We have and we'll say, for most normally organized people, that when we talk about left brain thinking, we're being more sequential. There's strategies, and we have histories, and we think of time as being linear. And then this is, like all of our counting abilities and language and different things are held in there. And then the right side is more of the emotional, creative, expressive brain. Then we have, the frontal lobe, where we're tracking and making sense of everything. And a lot of our beliefs and programs are stored there in the frontal lobe of the brain. And during the course of our time together, you may actually hear me say, massage your forehead. As you make a change, I want you to massage your forehead in a circular way. I've just noticed that this seems to relieve the pressure of what's happening at the front of the brain, because there's suddenly a new rush of blood, and bringing in support of the new programming taking place. I got a little image here for you. This is me at a talk a couple of years ago, and I'm actually looking through my fist, playing telescope there. And this is how we are mostly meeting the world. And so I'm going to encourage you to look through that little telescope. And as you're looking through, it's amazing to, it's kind of funny because when you first kind of look through it, first you're aware of everything that you're not seeing, but then if you focus on any one thing, it actually brings it into greater clarity. Okay. Well, this is your brain on beta. We actually have four brain waves, but I want you to think about something. The reason I use this illustration is because in your normal everyday waking experience, there's billions of bits of information to process that we're tracking. And we have what Asara calls a sphere of influence that goes with that vibration as far as like our ability to get information and make meaning. And when we're on beta, which is the shortest, it's 13 to 40 hertz. It's very tight pulses. We're operating again in that frontal lobe. It is making decisions based on decisions that we made in the past, based on past parameters. Okay? And everything that does not match what has been programmed into it, because it does what's called generalization. And so it makes up rules that say every time, everyone, everything, always, never. And when we are using that kind of language, then we're actually turning parts of our mind on and off. We're turning on and off our own DNA with the spoken word. And we are programming ourselves just through our regular, normal language. But also, we have this emotional match of wanting to avoid pain or gain pleasure. And so it goes on the search for everything that's the match, and it filters out everything else. So when I say, come back to this picture of this is your brain on beta, well, this is you deleting everything that does not match your own inner reality. And let's say that you are looking for some help or support, and you look around and somehow it doesn't come into the view of that little teeny dot of light that you're looking through. But then if you find somebody who looks remotely familiar to someone in the past who hurt you, I mean, the least little bit similar to someone who hurt you in the past, you will reject them just because they look similar. The mind is such a funny thing, and you have to catch yourself on this. Okay, so you're going to start becoming more aware of it and start asking yourself, is this true? Is this true now? Yeah, that happened before, but I'm not 3 years old or 5 years old, or I'm not 17 anymore. I'm a powerful adult now. What do I know now that I didn't know before? So we're actually going to be doing that. Well, we're spending an awful lot of time in this beta. And what happens is it's our least resourceful state. I mean, it's associated with worry and stress, fear, irritability, moodiness, anger. And if we operate here too much, this actually starts to damage our health. Now, there are times that this is good, just like when we said that super focused time, and we need to be linear, and we need to do math and all of that. There are times that it's good. But it's like kind of walking around with one arm and one foot tied up. It's harder. You're probably familiar with alpha because when we go into hypnosis or Reiki or get a massage or we're watching television, we naturally go into more of an alpha state and we start to meditate and relax. And this is that feeling of you kind of getting some vivid imagery just before you drift off to sleep. So you start imagining or thinking, or you're having reverie. And this is associated with effortless creativity and very powerful memory, super learning. It's very harmonious and peaceful. This is a really wonderful level of the brain for clearing, for changing habits, leaving fears, releasing phobias. One of my favorite things to do, by the way, the easiest thing to do is to bust a phobia. And I have a fast phobia cure. And if you have got a phobia that's bugging you, give me a call because I have a technique that busts phobias in less than 30 minutes, and sometimes as in little as 10 minutes. And so if you've got something that heights or airplanes, claustrophobia, public speaking, any of those things, contact me because I can help you with that. This is one of the easiest things to clear. And it is associated with a sense of tranquility and calm, like when we're meditating. Now, the thing about alpha is that you can equally be influenced positively and negatively through repetition, through symbolism, through ceremony, badges, people who wear uniforms, that type of thing. So, and it's very easy to anchor in, which an anchor is where we have an internal emotional state and an outside physical stimulus, just like when I was having you press on your knee, that's an anchor. It's very easy to anchor in new thoughts, behaviors, and ideas in this state. Going into a deeper state is theta. Now, normally, when you're in theta, it's one of two times. You're asleep, or another time you're in theta is when you're in highway hypnosis. Okay, now we've all had that happen where you get in the car and you start driving, and then suddenly you realize you've driven 50 miles and you're just kind of waking up and it's time for your exit. And somehow you've avoided all of the trucks and ditches and you just were able to drive. You went on autopilot, but your mind was completely someplace else. That is your mind in theta. Elmer, I'm very sorry, the person, now I can't even think of his name, but he was with the Messenger Institute, and when he measured people who had a lot of theta activity and started taking people into the theta state when he was doing voluntary controls and first introducing biofeedback, he noticed that theta was one of the best brain waves for dealing with deep emotional problems. If people could simply go into that theta state, there was this very heightened sense of well-being. It feels a little floaty, you feel very calm, and you just feel a greater sense of connection to others. What we've also noticed working with this is that when we go into theta, the solution to a problem that we have actually seems to have it seems to have more good, serve a greater purpose, and it's usually a win-win. And in the six-step process, I want to talk to you a little bit about that because we spend time aligning to our heart, and the Heart Math Institute actually talks about this, that this takes us into coherence. And so there's a brain wave associated in 3 neurological centers of your brain, and the heart is very much operating in theta. Okay, so when we're connecting that heart with our mind, we're actually tapping into our deepest and truest hopes, wishes, and desires, and it somehow comes up with a solution that is a win-win, and there's no exclusion in this. It's the rule becomes, if it works for us to come to an agreement, it has to work for both of us. And so if it's right for me, it's going to be right for you too. It's not an either or thing. When we're up in beta, it's you or me, buddy. But when we're in theta, it's us. We can find a solution, and it naturally arrives. Okay. Next, we have delta, which is normally related to our deep sleep state. It's deep restorative sleep too. Now, I want to talk a little bit about these spheres of influence because this is a phrase that Asara Lovejoy uses a lot. And she's talking about, in the terms, let's say in terms of problem solving and their effectiveness. I want to give you just a little example of what that would be like. When we're in beta, like right now, I live in the state of Texas, and I know Texans are the only one that thinks Texas is the greatest state there ever was, but you'd have to be from here to really get it. And I don't think it's because we're brain damaged either. I'm just going to tell you. But um, Texans are really proud. We've got this great big state. We've got the space program here. There's a lot of technology, but then we have oil, and then there's a lot of engineering abilities. There's a lot of creative, and so we could just say that Beta would be comparable to a sphere of influence as about the size of the state of Texas. Maybe we might even say it's comparable to a place that might be the size of and population of New York City. Think about what an incredible city, you know, New York is, and it's international and the intellect, and I mean, it just seems like it's almost the center of the world, that we could say any large city. And so that's Beta. Hey, that's a lot of resources. There's technology and strategies, resources, creativity, there's money, there's enough people there to problem solve it. That's pretty awesome. But then if we wanted to go into the sphere of influence about what Alpha would be, Alpha would take us out into past the Van Allen belt, which is the big magnetic field that surrounds the Earth. Okay, and this keeps all of the sun's radiation from damaging us. And so it's out beyond the edge there, which is pretty amazing. That's an incredible sphere of influence, because that's more than what would encompass the Earth itself. There'd be all of that extra, um, all those millions of years of experience. I mean, think about all the bones, everyone that's ever been buried, and all that DNA and all of that information that's lying underneath the earth, and uh, all those hidden riches and treasures. And there's just so much knowledge in the whole planet, but even that we're even just beyond there, and that's Alpha. Theta is out beyond the edge of the known universe, out beyond. Now, again, there's galaxies, but out beyond. And when we come out to that outer edge of the universe and all the intelligence and everything that's contained in there, not only are we tapping into everything that exists now, we're tapping into everything that has ever been, and we're tapping into a greater potential. Delta, this sphere of influence, can't even be measured. That's even beyond there. Now, there's one more brainwave I want to introduce you to. I just want to talk about this for a second, because it's the gamma brainwave, and this has to do with peak performance and flow. And this operates very, very fast. I mean, if you can look at the squigglies on the chart here, it's a very fast brainwave, and what it has to do with is perception. When we have a new idea come in, what the gamma waves do is they stimulate the neurons in all the different parts of the brain. And in all the different parts of the brain contain all the bits of information about any one thing. So let's just say, we're looking at a computer monitor right now, okay? And as I'm looking at the computer monitor, I'm tracking colors, there's a shape, there's the name of it, there's all the function, there's the history of it, there's not, and then there's my personal history with it. There's all the technology that's built into this. There's everything that I'd have to know and understand that's already been generalized upon just what, I guess I've been working with a computer 25 years now. So has it been 25? Yeah, about 25 years now. And so there's all of my generalized experience, but to even what brought us up to where I could, everything that was in my experience has to come up to match this. So the way you would think about that would be, if there were to be an alien that landed on the planet that had never seen or heard of a computer, think of everything you'd have to tell them about the computer for them to be even to understand a half of what it is that you know about computers, even if you're not computer savvy. There's information on top of information on top of information, and it becomes little bundles of information that get stored in the morphogenic field. Okay? And it's just like these little packets of knowledge that we have, and all these little packets of knowledge come together, right? And it's all held together with emotion and perception. And perception has to do with our positioning. Are we coming from a position of authority or of weakness, of dominance or victimhood? And then different roles. So when we get new information, it is the gamma waves that bring all the understanding, all the different parts of the brain, bring it all together so that we could actually form the word computer and come to a general understanding about what that means and a general agreement. I mean, does that make sense? I mean, there's a lot that goes into, but all of that information that I just said, and there's even more that I couldn't even think of to tell you that gamma would be tracking, pulling together to bring together into just forming this word that gives us understanding. And this is what the gamma waves does. Now, the times that you have probably experienced the gamma wave has been probably when you've had like an auto accident, if you've ever been in one, or a friend of ours, excuse me, was in a motorcycle accident, and he said as the bike came to stop, he kept flying, and then it felt like it was in slow motion because he could see his bike stop, he could see the gravel, he saw the guardrail, he saw the cars coming, and then he made the decision mid-air, because he was able to track all this, that he needed to tuck and pull his body kind of around to the right. And all of this happened in a couple of seconds. What's happening is the brain is operating so fast when we're in this big traumatic or peak performance experience that it speeds up and our perception of time slows down. It's a pretty amazing thing. And it actually rules our perception of time too. So it's very, very interesting. So I'm actually going to be doing some more teaching around this gamma wave and how we can turn this gamma on and off on purpose. When we work with theta, by the way, when we take you up in the 6 steps in the process of the one command, we actually are taking you through all of the brain waves, starting with coming into beta first. Then as we're going through the steps and we're making the statement of the one command, you're actually starting to lower. Now, the minute that you have rolled your eyes up, you are going up into theta, but you're kind of in an alpha theta state. But then once you state the one command and you allow yourself to expand, then you're going into that theta delta. Now what happens is we go out to the edge of where we find the answer of our information. We don't know where that is, but I just know that the way I experience it is there's this expansive feeling that goes out, and then there's this snapback, and it's like the information's getting carried back in. Then the brain waves start coming back into higher, faster frequencies, and for a second it flashes into gamma, then we come back down into beta. Okay, so we're actually taking you into these brain waves on purpose by setting out these sheets of paper, teaching you how to go through these steps, anchoring you in, using your eyes. So I'm giving you some clues on how we do this. Then this forming of this very particular statement that you're going to be doing. By consciously going into that theta brain state, we recover the knowledge of our own greatness. And the way that people experience it's like, gosh, I always had the answer. I was a good person. We had Jaziana on the phone. You'll be hearing her in another recording where she was, her initial story was about how her parents wouldn't give her any allowance. She wanted money. She wanted to be able to get some things. So at age 8, she started playing piano at church because her parents weren't going to give her allowance. She didn't accept that answer. And So here at 8 years old, she's earning $2 a week playing piano at church, and then she started finding out other ways to make money. I thought, wow, what a powerful kid you are that you would not accept that answer of no, you don't get to have money. You took action and you did that. That must feel amazing. And she said until she had gone into theta, she had not really ever thought of it that way. Up until then, it had been a pain story for her. So as we go up in there and we connect to that greatness and that knowledge of our own greatness, we start dissolving these frozen particles of memories that we call our beliefs and the identity we associate with those moments as our limitations, leaving us open to our true potential. Now, I want to come back to that for a second, that identity we associate with those moments as our limitations. I mean, that's a interesting way to say that, but the identity of who you were, of not enough, or the one who was hurt. Remember all those dimensions of self? Well, there's a frozen part of you that was not good enough, that wasn't worthy, that was hurt or in pain. And the limitation of that identifying yourself that way is causing you pain today. So when we allow that to be dissolved, when we meet that in love and compassion, we begin to create for ourselves what we need, then that gives us more confidence and true freedom. I mean, no one can ever let you down again because you'll be 100% in charge of your inner reality and your outer experience. Isn't that great? So as a natural consequence, your blueprint for success simply arises to the surface. Now we've got some effects of the theta state, and I'm just going to leave it on the screen here for just a second because there are so many, and this is in your manual, but there's deep level of healing and regeneration of the body. You recapture strong and vivid sense of self, of well-being, increased sense of love for self and others. I'm going to warn you right now, when we're in theta a lot, I get theta drunk. And I just fall in love with everybody. And I was like, I just love you so much. You're just wonderful. You're just wonderful. Let's be together. That's me. I just start falling in love with everybody. I want us all to come live together. I'm going to take picnics together. But then unheard and unseen things become to the conscious awareness. So your intuition and your inner knowing, even though you might not necessarily know how you know, starts coming into your conscious awareness. Ideas start springing forth and intuitive resources rather than deductive reasoning. Now, deductive reasoning, there's nothing wrong with that. I really admire that, and there's times that we use that. But the problem with deductive reasoning is, it's the same problem with philosophy. You can prove anything wrong. You can prove that anything doesn't exist. It's just an argument. But you can allow this truth that's inside of you to begin to express. You're going to start all of these internal experiences from your past, maybe some that were painful or blank or that you just didn't feel good about, that you've been trying to cut off and ignore. Those start getting integrated, and it kind of starts becoming kind of who you are, and there's a freedom in, even though there was pain, it's not a limitation. I mean, I was talking to someone about the web page, and I said, um, it never occurred to me not to talk about being a bedwetter, but it was something that for many, many years I didn't talk about because I was really embarrassed. It wasn't just something that happened when I was, like an adolescent, like 8 or 9 years old. This actually was a really damaging thing in my life because it was really heavy until I was like up until 17 years old. And then I would still have accidents. But my last accident, I was 21 and married. And I was completely humiliated. I didn't sleep for the first 3 weeks of being married because I was afraid of wetting the bed. I mean, this was a big defining thing. But once that last piece got integrated, it was just a piece of my experience that made me stronger and actually gave me more compassion for people. And it kind of set me up to have a supernatural acceptance and what was, it kind of helped me understand why I was always naturally excluding myself. So I was able to meet that and start including myself. So we all have those things like that. We always have that thing that made us not feel good enough or judged, that we had to keep secret. Maybe there was something in our family programming. Maybe there was alcoholism or some type of abuse, and we weren't allowed to talk about it. Well, this actually starts bringing that up and out in a way that is so empowering without having to really spend a lot of time going into it. It's so fast. And then improvements with in relationships with yourself and others. You're just emotionally healthier. I want to just kind of take a pause there and give you a second to stretch for a second. Oh, that was the slide I wanted. We'll have more flexibility in your thinking, reasoning, reacting, increased connection, more self-acceptance, increased creativity, new ideas, and problem solving. Then you're going to be having some really letting yourself go and hypnagogic images where you are in a fully engaged experience of almost, we'll call it a vision, and where you feel transported, and these reveries and fantasies can start coming in with a lot of visual and a lot of, there's so much information that comes in. And earlier in the conference I told the story that kind of spontaneously, when I was I was meditating on what did I really want to create? What level of wealth did I want to create? How did I want to live my life? And one thing that I didn't even realize that I wanted to do was go back to my old elementary school, Rufus Burleson Elementary in Dallas. I loved that school, and they had this incredible art program there with the music and the art program itself. And in those two rooms, I really got to have a lot of freedom, and there was beauty. Little, a bunch of little redneck kids, and we get exposed to culture and some higher ideals. And that school, even though it was in a poor white working class neighborhood, very much blue collar, there was so much respect, there was order, and I it was one of the few places I got to go all the way through. Once I started getting older, we had kind of a chaotic time because there was a lot of moving around. In fact, in my senior year, I went to 4 different high schools. I didn't get to have the bonding with people. But those experiences at that school were were so amazing. School was such a safe place for me, and I'm with the art, the art especially. And so I'm in this reverie, and I'm thinking about how I would love to make a big, meaningful endowment to the art program there, just so that they could get even half of what I got out of it. And suddenly I'm like transported, and I'm giving a speech, and it's the big day of giving the check, and it's not really about me. It's just like this big experience of love, and I get to really tell this school what it meant to me and the people there. And inside of that dream or that reverie were a lot of the clues to my success and a lot of my truest hopes, wishes, and desires. And it even expanded my sense of appreciation for the different things that I have got to experience in my life and connect in from joy to joy to joy, from appreciation to appreciation to appreciation, rather than my old way of thinking and being was from pain to pain to pain. One painful memory on top of another, one humiliation, one loss after another. That's how I used to talk about my life. Now it's a story of triumph and joy. And there's funny stuff that happens. And you're going to find that you're just have a lot more tolerance. And there's just everything seems to be working together for one idea, and that's to bring about success for you. So what is the one command? And what is exactly? So it's more than positive thoughts and affirmations. It takes place in your extraordinary intelligence. And right there in your theta brainwave, you're delinking your neurology and you're making a biological change. Now, remember when we did that little piece with your two fingers? Well, right then, that was one way that we delinked your neurology, how you're running your program. Because when we have a thought, it is not up in our head. We think we're up in our head, but it's communicating with every cell and fiber of our being, and our body is communicating back to us. Because what happens is when we have an emotion, it floods our body with chemicals. Then there are these neural receptors and transmitters, and they all get hooked up for these chemicals. And then when the chemicals aren't flowing, the neurotransmitters and receptors start screaming, just like if you ever tried to stop smoking or drinking. If you ever tried to take yourself off of sugar, it was your neurology that was screaming. Well, it's the same thing if you try to give up worry or doubt or fear, or you try to give up that family programming. This is running along specific neural pathways all the way through your body. And as long as that link is in place, if you do not complete the cycle, what happens is pain, actually. And then even when you come to the end of the cycle, and even if that means it's collapse or loss or another block, what happens? There's actually an endorphin rush that happens because then the body's flooded with the chemicals, and then there's almost a relief. Have you ever noticed that sometimes in a big loss, you just feel your body letting go, letting down? Yeah, that's because all that tension that you were holding. That's your neurology. And with the one command, you actually create something new. So right now is a great spot for you to take a break. What you're going to do is you're just going to pause the recording here, go stretch out, walk around, and we're going to take you through the three parts of the one command. And then I'm going to take you into formatting the command in another video. But I think that this is probably going to be about enough information once I take you through how to format the right command. Then we'll take you into doing some exercises in another video. So let's take a little break, go get a drink of water, make a pit stop, and we will see you soon. Okay, we're back. So the one command is a particular statement that is matched with going, motor driving your brain, going into, taking it into the theta brainwave. Now, the way this statement came around was Asara Lovejoy, who has been a consciousness educator for more years than I'm allowed to say at this point. We always say that she started very young. Had actually been a student of prosperity for many years, and she had times in her life that she had a lot of money, and then something would happen and she would lose her money. She's actually been a millionaire a few times over, and then had lost it. And the last time that she had really made some great money was when she was in Southern California, and I'd actually been her partner down there for a time, and she was on the radio. And she was performing on a Clear Channel station. At one point, she was on 3 different radio stations in Southern California, had a very large following, and had a lot of clients. And then her mother got ill, and so she took time from her career, shut down her office, and started taking care of her mother until she passed away. Part of what happened was she got an inheritance from that, and Asara made the decision that she finally wanted to fulfill her dream of moving to beautiful Whidbey Island, Washington, and start a retreat center there. She had dreamed of that for a lot of years, and so she took all of this money that was part of her savings and the money from her inheritance and went in search of finding a little property. that would be hers. Well, she found the perfect place, but the house just needed a little fixing up. Well, 2 years later, and a renovation that is still not finished, Asara has gone through the entire inheritance with the purchase of the property, the renovations, the changes. There was just a lot of problems on this because she hadn't hired an architect. She she just kind of went through and making changes and changing rooms around, and really just wound up in a really bad situation. And in order to finish the renovation, she had to take out a mortgage, in fact. So here's Asara, who at one point had quite a bit of money, and here now she's facing having a very large mortgage payment, and she doesn't have a regular job, and she hasn't had to work in a few years, and she's 60 plus at this point, and it's not like she can go to work at Kelly Girl because they'll make you take a typing test. I mean, once you have been a radio personality, this was your job, and she gave speeches, she had coaching clients, she just had this really kind of eclectic, interesting career, had public appearances, that type of thing. She was kind of a minor celebrity down in the area. She'd owned a state licensed vocational school teaching hypnotherapy, Reiki. She had a full 2 year program there. Before that, she had a very successful massage business and Reiki practice. And then before that, she'd actually owned her own RV business, and she'd been an RV salesman before that. And then before that, she'd been um, a, a stay-at-home mom, taking care of her children. And before that, she's married to a millionaire. So, with that kind of history, it's not like you just go get a job and the kind of job you get might not be the right one. And so she was like going, what am I going to do? She's laying in bed at night going, even if I got a job, on the island where she's living, that might pay $10 an hour. That is not going to cover this mortgage. What am I going to do? And so she said she'd spent the whole night laying in bed just shaking under the covers. She's to the point she just thought, I just want to die. I just want to leave the planet. I can't handle this. And she was mad at herself. She said, I've studied this stuff for years. I've had students. I've helped people make money. Why can't I make my own money? And what is this pattern of attempt, achieve, defeat that's going on over and over? And so she was just racking her brain trying to figure out how to save this house that had literally taken her last cent. And really, it was the last of what she had from her parents. And she got up in the morning and she just didn't even know how she was going to face the day. And finally, she just collapsed. And she just said these words, I don't know how I saved my home. I only know I'm saving this house. That's all there is to it. And just making that statement, she noticed she felt immediately calmer and at peace. Then she started kind of thinking about it. And she, years earlier, she had worked with someone who had taught her how to go into theta brainwave. And so she was doing some clearing and going up and saying, I want to, I want to create and manifest this, and I want to clear whatever these programs were. And while she was up there, she kind of ran out of ideas about what to say. When I say up there, when her eyes were rolled up and she's up in the theta state of mind, she realized she didn't really know what to ask for or think about next. So she just said again, I don't know how. I saved my home. I only know my home is safe. I don't know how. I pay these bills. I only know everything is paid in full now. And then this state of just fulfillment and satisfaction, she just felt herself naturally expanding. Then she came back down and into her body and relaxed, and she realized she wasn't worried anymore. She just felt peaceful, felt calm, felt happy. And that really got our attention because the next day she got the idea to rent her house out. She thought if I could rent my house out, then I could maybe earn enough that on the above the mortgage to pay for a smaller house, and let me, start working. Let me see if I can generate some business. And so she went to a realtor and was told him about her house. It's a 4,800 square foot house on Woodby Island. It's 5 bedrooms. I think there's 4 bathrooms. It's on a couple of acres. You can see the ocean. It's just beautiful. It's just amazing when you go to this house. And they said, well, houses on Woodby don't rent for very much. You can get 1,400. How much do you want? I saw her needed 35. They said they laughed at her. Said you'll never get it. And she said, well, then you're not my realtor. And she knew, and so many times people will accept what they're told and try to fight it. But what she did, she said, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm going to find another solution. So she went back home and she just said, well, she wasn't worried about it. She knew it was going to be taken care of, even though the deadline was bearing down on her on how to pay that mortgage. She was telling someone about what her situation was, what she decided to do, and they said, have you posted it on Craigslist yet? She said, what's a Craigslist? They came out to the house, they took some pictures, posted the house. The next day, the house was rented for the full $3,500. By the way, people from Texas, not me. They paid for a year in advance. They paid a big deposit. They thought it was a great deal. And she was able to take that money, set aside the money for her mortgage. She went and got another house. And then about that time, I was living in Texas, and I just happened to call her because there was a group that was interested in one of the classes that she taught. And I asked her if she was teaching. And I wasn't able to go. And she said, well, yes. Well, it turned out there were 18 students there. And that money took her through the next 6 months. And that one class, that was this little suggestion, wound up actually generating over $250,000 of income for her over the next year and a half because of everything that happened directly as a result of that class. Man, I've got to ask her for my referral on that. That was pretty good. How did that happen? That happened because one statement, the 3 parts of the one command. But then she connected into that greater capacity that knew the answer. And it expanded it out into a greater possibility. And it allowed the answer to arrive. So there's 3 parts to the one command. It starts out with, I don't know how, and then we state positively what we want. So I don't know how my bills are paid in full. I don't know how my mortgage is paid. I don't know how I have a satisfying career. I don't know how I get to work on time. I only know it is so now, which is the second part. The third part is I am fulfilled. Now, this I only know it is so now is because in the unconscious mind right now, it is now o'clock. Right now is now, even when we have a memory, when we're projecting something and imagining, time we're thinking about it is now. In the unconscious mind, all time is now. And I want you to remember that. And then we're bringing in this state of fulfillment and joy. The reason that this is important is because so often we defer our happiness and joy until we get what we want. I can't be happy until I know this problem's solved. But what if it's just as true that if you were walking around in the state of fulfillment, joy, and happiness, it'd be easier to solve the problem. But also, we are creating the internal state that we want to experience with our manifestation so that we have a new positive match. Okay, so that's a very simple one. And so I just want you to think about something. We're going to try this statement out. Just using that very first part of I don't know how. I want you to think about something that you want to manifest or create, but you're not sure how you're going to do it. You've been a little worried about it. You need to create it. Okay, so now I want you to go ahead and state out loud, I don't know how. What happened? Probably just kind of went away. Try to find that thought now. Can you find it? No, it's gone. That's because when we said I don't know how, we're actually speaking to two parts of the brain at the same time. If you have ever done affirmations or anything, you probably heard it said, Catherine, don't say don't. We never say don't because the unconscious mind don't hear don't. And you're right, it doesn't. So we're actually speaking first to the conscious mind that's saying, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We got to do this. We got to figure it out. But we say, well, we don't know how to do this. Well, immediately that causes a stop and it says, oh, well, if you don't know how, we've got to go find someone who does. And it already sends your mind on a search for a solution to arrive, which connects back to that reticular activating system. Then it's also speaking to the part of you that doesn't hear the don't, and it's saying, I know how. Because, yeah, I know how. How do I know this? And then it starts connecting into the part of you that already knows. So there is a wrong way of doing the one command. And just here's one little example of it. I don't know how I will, and then state what you want, but I only know it so now, and I am fulfilled. Will is it's more of like a placeholder. It defers thing. It doesn't really give you what it is that you want. You must make a decision now about what you want now, clearly. If you want to double your income, I don't know how I double my income. I only know my income is double now, and I am fulfilled. Now, what I did is I did a little kind of flip back and forth. I don't know how it is. I only know it is now. And for me, that works that way. And we're going to talk about some of the ways you use the one command. The other thing is that we don't want to use the word but because it actually cuts the energy and it actually brings you inadvertently into a negative limited state. So when you are using the word but, use it on purpose. I always say if you're going to say but, you have a great big but. And here's the example of that. I'm going to make a statement two different ways and notice how it feels and notice what your impression is both ways. Mary is a sweet, lovely girl, but you know, she has trouble getting to work on time and she's always borrowing my stapler. Mary has trouble getting to work on time sometimes and she's always borrowing my stapler, but she is a sweet, lovely girl. Which Mary do you want to know? Right, because the first one separated, the second one included, because it is a more positive state. Next, we couple this statement with the 6 steps to theta, which is actually, for the first time that we teach you, we actually lay out sheets of paper, or I do recommend that there's a couple of ways you can do it. If it's too hard to lay out the sheets of paper, I've actually taped the sheets of paper to the wall. But these 6 steps are the steps that every person is able to go into extraordinary levels of their mind power, go into expanded states of awareness, actually go through these steps. The first one is ground. When we're talking about grounding, we're connecting into here and now. You know, our mind is rushing off to the future, and mentally, and emotionally, we're living in the past. But when we ground, we're bringing ourselves into here and now, to the resources and the answers that are here now. Eckhart Tolle talks about that in the power of now. And if you just went into spending time in this grounding state, you would find that you were calmer, more peaceful, and to have a greater sense of awareness and acceptance. Second is align. We're bringing you into your heart, connecting into the wisdom of your heart, but then we're also aligning you to your purpose. Now, we have different purposes, we have different things that we want to create, but we're really coming into the greater good that would come from the result of this experience. Next, we have you go up to theta, which means when we say do that, we have you close your eyes, roll your eyes up, and we have you picture, visualize, or imagine that you're traveling up a golden pole of light, and the higher you go, the faster you go. Then you're breaking through the darkness. You're breaking through, and when they have tracked the people who are going out into those extraordinary states, there's this moment that they feel like there's a resistance that they're having to push up against it, and then finally they break through, and that means they're going beyond their boundaries, and they're going to get a new answer. Then we have you state the one command. Now, when we have you state the one command, we have you state it silently to yourself. Next is expand. That's when we let that idea go and we are instructing our unconscious mind to go on a search for the answer. And then we are instructing it to find a solution that serves more good in its fulfillment. Finally, we receive. So I just want to walk you back through some of these steps where we ground, and the imagery that we use is we actually have you imagine that you're like a tree with long roots connecting down into the earth. Then we have you bring your attention to your heart, and we're actually guiding your eyes too, because when we have you ground, we have you look down. Then we have you focus on your heart as you come into alignment. Then we have you close your eyes, roll your eyes up as if you're trying to look up to the top of your head, and we have you imagine that you're going up a pole of light. Now you are actually staying in your body, but you're moving yourself into a position of being an observer so that you can get new information. Then we have you break through the darkness into the light, because we're having you go into the black void of space, breaking through, coming into that white luminescence of pure potential, which is that step in between go up to theta and state the one command. Finally, when you state the one command, you do state it silently, state it positively. And what will happen too is you may wind up having another thought come up behind there, and you actually make all the commands, we call them considerations or objections. So while you're learning it, you're making one command, coming back down, and then going back up again. But what you notice is another thought comes behind it. So if you say, well, I don't know how I have a new job. I only know I have a new job now. Then the thought comes up and says, I don't want any job. I want a great job. So then you would make the correction, I don't know how. I have a great job that I really love. Then your mind goes, I want a great job, but could we have it closer to the house? Because I'm tired of being further, having to do all the commuting. So I don't know how I have a great job that's close by and has great pay. I only know I do now. So you'll actually do some stacking like that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Then we expand out to an idea even greater that serves more good in its fulfillment. And that's nothing for you to do here. You're simply allowing that idea to go out, find the solution, then finally you allow yourself to receive. As you start to receive, we talked to you a little bit about receiving and unwinding and letting all that old neurology go and release. And Asara had actually seen in her mind's eye, she could see all the little DNA strands unwinding, which I see that too. And then the neurological pathways, and that's what we're speaking to. There's nothing for you to unwind. We're mostly creating space for you to be able to allow that to come in and then finally integrate. Okay? Isn't that beautiful? So I want you to think about, we're going to do a little meditation. I want you to think about something that you would like to create. It may be more money, maybe a better job, it may be the ability to retire. But I want you to simply come up with a very simple command, like I don't know how I increase my income. I don't know how I decrease my debt. I don't know how I have new clients. Whatever it is, I want you to just make it very simple. And then I'm going to walk you up through the 6 steps. Okay, I'm going to take you right up through this process of the one command, just so you can experience for yourself. Now, what I'm going to have you do is you're going to have this recording, and if you have the ability to print out those papers and step on them either on the ground or put them on the wall, or maybe just stand up at where your computer is and take one step to the left as you're doing this, then you're going to get a greater experience of this. And we really recommend that you do this twice. Now, I do want to make a note here that when you lay out your papers, it does not matter if you lay out your papers left to right or right to left. It's a completely personal preference. That's all you need to do. Okay? All right. So now we're going to go back up. Let me just rewind back up here. And right now, though, before you lay out your papers, let's just go ahead and go through this process together. Just let yourself settle in, and whether you're on the papers or sitting down, this is a preference right now. Allow yourself to ground. Imagine that you're like a tree and you have long roots going deep down into the earth. Feel your connection to the earth and feel the earth's connection to you. Bring up that beautiful, loving earth energy, bringing your attention to your heart and that love in your heart as you come into alignment. And just let that love in your heart become illuminated and let that expand 360 degrees around you. Now with your eyes closed, roll your eyes up. Picture, visualize, or imagine that you are traveling up a golden pole of light, and the higher you go, the faster you go. And soon you find yourself surrounded by that beautiful black void of space. Break through the darkness into the light. Come into that white luminescence of pure potential. Eyes up. Silently make your statement for your command. I don't know how I can state what it is that you want. I only know that it is so now, and I am fulfilled. Now, allow that idea to expand to an idea even greater that serves more good in its fulfillment. Then, when you're ready, just allow that to begin to receive, and just start to receive in gratitude. And then, as this new state of being begins to arrive, just allow it to unwind, unwind, unwind. Then we're going to rewind, 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 and integrate. Very good. Okay, this is going to bring this portion to an end. What we're going to be doing is there is a demonstration that I'm doing with Amparo that's on the membership site. You can take a look at that. It was filmed with a camera that was a little too far away. But if you wanted to watch that, then we can do that. And then I can actually see if I can get another recording in for you. In fact, I'll go ahead and do this. And then you have a handout in your in your manual. There's an exercise that you're going through the one command process 2 times. This is a little homework piece for you, and you can do it by yourself or with a partner. You're going to form a command, and you're going to go through the 6-step process 2 different times using the same command. And then once you do this, I want you to just notice how it felt the second time you did it. Now, normally when you do a one command, you do it once. And it's not only do it once or you're going to like lose it, but we're going to answer some of those common questions about the one command and how many times you form it and what's the right command and what to expect in that time in between, okay? But right now, I want you to focus on doing this class exercise that's in your manual. And then we'll be coming back and then we'll be starting the next section. So this ends the first part of the morning's recording. Then we have everything up there now that is through the end of the day for day 1, and then we are going to be adding some more pieces, so keep an eye out on the membership. All right, well, thank you so much. This is Catherine Perry. And I am just so blessed to be in your presence. And then In the next session, we will be getting your questions. So until next time,